At Greenfield General Hospital, the air always carried a mix of urgency and quiet hope. It was the kind of place where people came in at their worst and left, sometimes, a little more whole. Among the nurses was a young woman named Aisha. She had only been working there for 2 years, but already, her calm nature and kind smile had made her stand out. She was known for volunteering for the hardest shifts and for comforting patients no one else could reach. One rainy evening, Aisha clocked in for what she thought would be just another routine shift. The hospital was unusually quiet, the kind of calm that often came before a storm. And sure enough, just after 9 p.m., the emergency room doors burst open. Paramedics rushed in a woman who had been in a severe car accident. Her face was pale, her clothes torn, and blood covered most of her body. The doctors quickly called for emergency surgery, but there was a problem. The hospital's blood bank was dangerously low on O-negative blood, the universal donor type, and the woman's condition was worsening fast. The head nurse announced the shortage in a tense voice, and without thinking, Aisha stepped forward. She quietly said she was O-negative and was willing to donate right away. No one asked her twice. Within minutes, she was prepped and hooked up. As her blood flowed into a bag, Aisha stared at the ceiling, feeling a mix of worry and peace. She didn't know who the woman was. She didn't ask. She just knew someone's life depended on her. The surgery went on for hours. Aisha finished her donation, rested briefly, and then went back to work. Her body was tired, but her mind was restless. She passed by the operating room more than once, her eyes drawn to the red light above the door. Something about this woman felt different, but Aisha couldn't explain why. The next morning, after her shift ended, she passed by the nurse's station one last time before heading home. That's when she overheard the name of the patient. Zahra Malik. Aisha paused. The name sounded familiar. Not from her work, but from somewhere else. She couldn't quite place it. When she reached home, she searched the name on her phone, and her heart skipped a beat. Zahra Malik wasn't just any woman. She was the founder and CEO of a large fashion company known for its charity work and stylish yet affordable clothing. She had been featured in magazines, had given TED Talks, and was praised for balancing her success with raising her daughter alone. Aisha stared at the screen in disbelief. She had donated blood to Zahra Malik, a woman she had admired from afar for years. But none of that had mattered when she saw her on that stretcher. In that moment, Zahra had just been another life hanging by a thread. Days passed. Zahra made it through surgery and was in recovery. The doctors were amazed by how quickly she stabilized, thanks in part to the timely blood donation. Aisha checked in on her now and then, even when she wasn't assigned to her care. She didn't speak to her, just peeked through the window to see how she was doing. One afternoon, as Aisha was walking past the room, she saw a young girl sitting by Zahra's bed, holding her hand. She looked about 16 or 17, her school bag tossed to the side. The girl looked tired, but she didn't let go of Zahra's hand. That must be her daughter, Aisha thought. The scene touched her more than she expected. She remembered her own mother, who had passed away a few years ago, and how she had held her hand just the same way during her final days. The next day, Aisha was surprised when the head nurse asked her to report to the hospital administrator's office. Her heart pounded as she knocked on the door. Had she done something wrong? But instead, she found herself face to face with Zahra's personal assistant and a member of the hospital board. They thanked her for her donation and handed her a handwritten letter from Zahra. The letter was short but heartfelt. Zahra wrote that she had been told about the young nurse who had saved her life and wanted to meet her when she was well enough. Aisha was stunned. She hadn't expected thanks, and certainly not from someone like Zahra Malik. She returned to her duties, trying to keep the moment tucked quietly in her heart. A few days later, she was assigned to assist Zahra during her recovery. It was awkward at first, but Zahra greeted her with warmth and deep gratitude. She told Aisha that she reminded her of herself, quiet, strong, and unshakably kind. They talked more with each passing day, and Aisha found herself opening up, sharing stories she hadn't told anyone in a long time. She learned that Zahra wasn't just strong in business, but also in spirit. Behind her success were years of struggles, betrayals, and heartbreak, all faced alone. Her daughter, Meher, was the only family she had left. As Aisha cared for her, she noticed something odd. Zahra always clutched a necklace with a strange symbol, a sun with an arrow through it. She never took it off, even during procedures. One evening, when Zahra was dozing, the necklace slipped loose, and Aisha gently fastened it back. That's when she noticed a small compartment in the back. It looked like it could open, like it was hiding something. Aisha felt a chill. What was so important that someone like Zara Malik kept it around her neck all the time? Before she could ask, Zara stirred and opened her eyes. She looked at Aisha and smiled faintly. "You saved my life," she said, her voice quiet. "But I think fate saved yours too." Aisha didn't understand what she meant, but something told her. Her simple act of kindness had set in motion something much bigger than she could imagine. Zara's health improved over the next week, and the hospital buzzed with whispers about her recovery. Though her room was often filled with flowers and business associates trying to check in, she seemed most at ease when Aisha was nearby. The bond they had started to form was quiet but strong, built not on fame or admiration, but on trust. Aisha continued her shifts, but she found herself lingering longer during checkups on Zara. One afternoon, as she adjusted Zara's fur, Zara asked her to stay a little longer. She wanted to share something she hadn't told anyone else. Aisha hesitated but agreed, unsure of what to expect. Zara began to speak slowly, revealing pieces of her past that had been buried for years. She spoke about her rise in the fashion industry, the sacrifices she made as a single mother, and the enemies she had made along the way. But then her voice grew quieter, and she reached for the necklace again. She said there were things people didn't know about her. Dangerous things connected to a deal gone wrong years ago in her early business days. She didn't give too many details, but Aisha could see the fear in her eyes. Zara told her that the necklace she wore wasn't just jewelry, it held something important, something someone might be willing to hurt her to get back. Aisha listened carefully, feeling the weight of Zara's words settle into her chest like cold stone. She didn't know what to say, so she promised silently to watch over Zara as best she could. The next morning, when Aisha arrived for her shift, she noticed something different. Zara's room was guarded by two men in black suits claiming to be private security. The hospital had approved it, saying it was for Zara's protection. But something about them felt wrong. Their eyes followed Aisha every time she entered the room, and they never smiled. That evening, Aisha overheard one of the guards talking on the phone in the hallway. He mentioned something about retrieving the item and making sure she doesn't leave the hospital without it. Her stomach turned. She wanted to believe Zara was just being cautious, but now she wondered if there really was something dangerous hidden in that necklace. She decided to visit Zara that night when her shift ended. The halls were quieter, the guards less attentive, and Aisha used her familiarity with the hospital to sneak in through the side entrance of the recovery wing. She found Zara awake, eyes wide and alert, as if she too sensed something was about to happen. Aisha told her what she heard, and Zara confirmed her fears. She explained that years ago, she had discovered evidence of financial crimes involving several powerful people during the early stages of her business. Instead of going public, she had hidden the evidence inside the locket she always wore. It was encoded into a tiny chip embedded in the necklace's design, something only she could access. She kept it close because she never knew who she could trust, and she feared someone from her past had finally tracked her down. They both knew she couldn't stay in the hospital much longer. Aisha offered to help her leave without anyone noticing. Zara resisted at first, but finally agreed. They waited until the dead of night, when the security rotation was weakest. Aisha used her access card to guide Zara through staff-only areas, down back stairwells, and out into the cold night air. Aisha had called a taxi and paid in cash, not trusting her own car or any rideshare service. As they drove to a safe hotel Zara had used years ago during her business travels, neither of them spoke much. The silence was filled with fear and unspoken questions. They checked into a quiet room under a false name, and Aisha sat by the window, watching for any signs of danger. Zara finally fell asleep, clutching the necklace tightly. Aisha didn't sleep that night. She kept replaying everything in her mind, how a simple act of donating blood had brought her here, sitting in a dim hotel room, protecting a woman with secrets powerful enough to ruin lives. The next morning, Zara contacted someone she trusted, a lawyer who had helped her in the past. She arranged a meeting at a private office. Aisha went with her, not wanting to leave her side. The lawyer listened carefully, nodded often, and agreed to help. He said he would begin the legal process to bring the evidence forward, but they had to move quickly. If word got out that Zara was trying to expose powerful names, she could be in real danger. That evening, Aisha returned to the hospital alone. She needed to collect some of Zara's personal belongings and to keep up appearances. But when she arrived, she realized something was off. Her badge no longer worked. She tried to enter through the main entrance, But a supervisor pulled her aside and informed her that she had been placed under investigation for suspicious behavior, specifically for unauthorized access to patient areas. Aisha's heart pounded. Someone had noticed her helping Zara escape. She quickly realized that someone within the hospital had likely tipped off those men. They were watching her too now. She went home that night in a daze, wondering what would happen next. Her phone buzzed with a text from Zara. "We're not safe yet." They know. That message alone was enough to send Aisha into panic. She deleted the text, packed a small bag, and left her apartment. For the next few days, she moved from place to place with Zara and her daughter Meher, never staying anywhere too long. The lawyer managed to secure a meeting with a trusted journalist from a respected news outlet. They agreed to run the story and release the evidence, but needed a few more days to prepare. Aisha and Zara waited in a rented cottage outside the city, hoping they wouldn't be found. During that time, the bond between Aisha and Zara deepened. It was no longer about gratitude or duty. It was friendship, respect, and something that felt almost like family. Meher started to call Aisha Baji, and she helped her with homework, cooked meals, and offered the comfort that only a calm presence can bring. One evening, while Meher was asleep, Zara thanked Aisha again. She said she had expected her life to end on that hospital bed. She had no idea that the nurse who offered her blood would be the one standing beside her now, risking everything. Aisha replied that she had never expected her simple action to become part of something so important. But now, she couldn't walk away. They were both in too deep. And fate, it seemed, wasn't done with them yet. The day of the truth's release finally arrived. The journalist Zara's lawyer had published the full story early in the morning. It went live across news sites, social media, and television broadcasts. The article detailed everything: how Zara Malik had uncovered years of corruption, financial fraud, and illegal land dealings involving influential business leaders, politicians, and even members of her own board. The evidence, stored for over a decade inside a necklace she never removed, was now public. The chip hidden in its clasp contained files, contracts, emails, and confidential recordings. Within hours, the country was buzzing. Reactions poured in. Some called her a hero. Others questioned the story, claiming it was a publicity stunt. But as more documents were verified, one thing became clear: Zara had been telling the truth, and the people she had exposed were running scared. The fallout was swift. Arrests began that same week. Some of the powerful names tried to flee, but the law caught up. Banks froze assets. Companies collapsed overnight. And all the while, Zara and Aisha remained in hiding. The threats hadn't stopped. In fact, they had grown louder. But now, they were surrounded by supporters, activists, journalists, former employees, and even strangers who were moved by Zara's courage. Amid the chaos, Zara received official protection from federal authorities. Meher was allowed to return to school, this time with security, and Aisha was offered a full legal defense by the hospital's ethics committee. They had tried to silence her, to frame her as someone who broke rules, but the truth had won. The board dropped all charges after reviewing the full story, and Aisha was not only cleared but offered a promotion. She declined quietly. Too much had changed. She wasn't the same nurse who had walked into a night shift weeks ago expecting just another evening. As things calmed down, Zara decided she needed to leave the city. She wanted to rebuild, but not in the spotlight. She had done what she needed to do: tell the truth, protect her daughter, and set things right. She invited Aisha to come with her, not out of gratitude, but out of a genuine wish to keep her close. Aisha had become more than just her nurse or helper. She was family now, someone who had stayed when it was hard, someone who had believed her when no one else did. They moved to a coastal town, far from the noise, and started a small foundation together. It focused on helping women in difficult situations, those who had faced abuse, betrayal, or silence. They offered support, training, and medical help. The foundation was named Light Within, inspired by Zara's belief that every woman carries strength even in her darkest hour. Aisha helped run the health side of things, and Zara took care of outreach and funding. Meher adjusted to the new school slowly, but she found peace in the quiet days and the waves she could hear from her bedroom. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the blood donation that had changed everything, they gathered at the beach. The sun was rising, casting a soft orange light on the water. Zara held the necklace in her hand, its chip removed, its purpose fulfilled. She looked at Aisha and smiled. They didn't need to say anything. Everything that needed to be spoken had already been said through actions, through choices. Aisha watched the waves, thinking about all that had happened. She had gone from a quiet nurse with a daily routine to someone who had helped uncover one of the biggest scandals in recent history. But more than that, she had found her voice. She had discovered that even the smallest act, like offering blood to a stranger, can spark a chain of events powerful enough to change lives. She had never looked for recognition, and yet, she had become part of something much larger than herself. Back at the hospital, her old colleagues still spoke of her with pride. New nurses were told about the night Aisha saved a woman who turned out to be one of the most influential figures in the country. They didn't know all the details, of course, but they knew enough to be inspired. A framed article hung in the staff break room, with the headline, "She thought it was just a blood donation, but fate had bigger plans for her." The picture beneath it showed Aisha and Zara at the foundation's ribbon cutting, both smiling, their eyes reflecting strength, struggle, and something unshakable. Time moved on, but their bond remained. Zara eventually wrote a book about her journey, with a full chapter dedicated to Aisha. In it, she wrote that not all heroes wear uniforms or carry weapons. Some wear scrubs, offer silent comfort, and give without expecting anything in return. Aisha read that chapter quietly one evening, tears in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming truth of what they had survived together. She kept the original letter Zara had written her, the one she'd received at the hospital before any of the chaos began. It sat in her drawer, a reminder of the night she didn't hesitate. She never imagined her blood would save a life, or that the life she saved would end up saving hers too. In the end, it wasn't just about the donation. It was about choices made in moments that seem small but carry the weight of destiny. Aisha had stepped forward that night without thinking, and in doing so, had stepped into a future she never could have planned. Zara had lived because of her. Justice had been served because they both refused to back down. And in a quiet house near the sea, filled with laughter, healing, and purpose, two women and a young girl built a new life, one made not by fate alone, but by the strength to face it head-on, together.